Welcome everybody. Today it is my pleasure to have Simran Sawhney. Simran Sawhney is an aspiring 16-year-old entrepreneur, creator of ThinkSmart, an incredible company which she will talk about during this interview. So Simran, why don't you tell us a little something about yourself?
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Simran Sawhney. I'm 16 years old and I live in Millburn, New Jersey. I go to Millburn High School. Just a little bit about myself before we get into the whole entrepreneurial side of me. I used to live in Washington, D.C., and then I moved to Switzerland when I was 8, which was an absolutely fascinating and amazing experience. And I lived there for about 3.5 years, and then I moved to here, Melbourne. But while I lived in Europe, I got to explore all around. I got to explore Switzerland, France, Italy, Spain, Germany, everywhere. So that was an absolutely awesome experience, and now I'm here.
That's awesome. Now, could you tell us about ThinkSmart? What is ThinkSmart? Why is it so special?
Okay, so ThinkSmart is basically a basic tutoring system company. And kind of what distinguishes us is that we have cost-effective tutors. So when I was creating the company, or before I even created it, I had this idea where I saw, a bunch of my peers trying to find tutors that were able to be not only inexpensive and that they could afford, but also tutors that kind of really understood the curriculum, the rigorous curriculum of Millburn High School. So when I was seeing this happen, I identified a gap kind of in the tutoring market, and that's kind of what made me want to create this company with my friend. Shout out to Victoria. She co-founded it with me. So
Okay,
that's
awesome.
kind of where it all started.
And well, what is the future for the company? Because now we know what you do, but what's the implication? What do you want for it to do in the future?
Right. So as of right now, we kind of focus on one-on-one tutoring, so face-to-face tutoring. But one of our methods of expansion, how we want to kind of reach out of the local community, is through online interactions with tutors and students. That's kind of one of the things that we're trying to figure out on our website, so that students that don't necessarily have access and can one-on-one talk to the teacher can do it through online.
Okay, and I want to know, what is it that makes you passionate about this company? Because in a way, you are in school for 8 hours and then you come out and then you have a tutoring company, which is just like more school. So
Right.
what is it that you find passion about it? What keeps you moving and moving until you want to have this new dream of having it online?
Right. Okay, so quick story before I go into that. When I was living in Switzerland, what kind of got me interested in entrepreneurship was I started selling these bracelets around my community, in the neighborhood and at my school. And then I sent the money that I created, and that money went towards building schools in Uganda for the children that couldn't afford to have these other educational resources. So we kind of built schools. And I saw an email come from the lady that I was talking to with pictures of these kids that were smiling, that were at their new school. And that's kind of what motivates me when I'm working on this tutoring company. Yes, it gets really harsh and hard with schoolwork and extracurriculars. But seeing that smile on a child's face or a student's face when they finally understand a concept or are able to understand what they're learning, I think that's what makes me so interested in it. It's not really about the money for me. I could care less about that in this moment. It's more about, getting to see the happiness on kids' face.
That's amazing and I respect that. Now, I want to know, what makes you an entrepreneur? What's that characteristic that defines yourself as an entrepreneur?
Right. Okay. So I think the most important thing that an entrepreneur can have is the right mindset. An entrepreneur has to be able to observe the world, see the problems that are going on in the world, and be able to think outside the box, think creatively, to develop a company to solve those problems. I think that's the biggest thing that makes me an entrepreneur, this idea that I can think outside the box and kind of come up with a creative way to solve a problem. And being able to identify a problem just by kind of observing my surroundings. I think that's what makes an entrepreneur an entrepreneur.
And basing ourselves on that, now that ThinkSmart has grown, now that you're thinking about this expansion, if you could go back in time and talk to yourself to the moment you were creating ThinkSmart, and you could give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
One piece of advice. Well, I guess when you are creating a company, or when I was creating a company, think about the big picture, probably. Think about where you could see yourself in a few years' time. I mean, when I was creating ThinkSmart, I kind of just thought about it. I kind of just thought locally, in a local perspective. Kind of just a narrow-minded perspective where I was just focusing on my community itself. I think one of the things that I'm trying to do right now is expand a little bit more, and I wish that I'd kind of thought about that when I was creating my company.
Oh, that's great. And I want to know, what would you recommend? I ask this to every entrepreneur that comes into this program. What would you recommend for anybody who's just starting in business, who's starting in entrepreneurship? What would be a good piece of advice you, Simran Sawhney, could give them?
Okay, a good piece of advice. I think stay dedicated, stay passionate, and put all that you have into your company. Obviously, there's times where you have to adapt and change to what's happening. But in order to be an entrepreneur and to have success, you have to be ready to face failure. One of the other companies that I'm starting up right now with my high school group, MIT Launch, under MIT Launch, is a company called Progo. It's an online skill acquisition company. Well, the company itself is a way to connect customers to professionals based off of a skill that they want to acquire or something they want to kind of learn. So when you're kind of thinking about doing that, it's important to distinguish yourself from your surroundings. And one of our major competitors, or not technically competitors, but would be Angie's List, right? So Angie's List, though, the way that we differentiate ourselves is through by being much more streamlined towards the educational aspect of acquiring a skill, whereas Angie's List is for services like home renovation or interior design. So one of the major problems with that was, staying dedicated. There's always going to be competition around you, and you just have to be ready to kind of face that competition, learn a way to distinguish yourself, face failures, and go off of that.
Well, thank you so much, Simra. It has been a true honor having you today at Oddin Noticias. And just to finish, is there anything you would like to tell our audience?
Yeah. Okay. So I kind of think that in today's society, there's some sort of stigma against kids, sharing their opinions, creating their own companies. There's kind of this mentality that a kid can't be the one starting a company. We're not knowledgeable enough. We're not experienced enough. But I think that mentality is just so messed up. Kids are the ones with all the creativity. Yes, an adult can have creative ideas, but, kids can really see the world for what it is. And I think that's something that we need to continue pursuing as a society, and we need to encourage that. So I think if you are a young entrepreneur that's kind of scared to get started, take that first step and just start, because that's the biggest thing holding you back.
Well, then there you have it. Simran Sawhney, a young entrepreneur, creator of ThinkSmart, and now an honor to have you here at Oddin Noticias. Thank you so much for giving us your time, Simra.
Thank you.